Alright guys, welcome back to the shop. We are finishing up our little 90s here. We're trying to get them ready. Haven't posted them for sale or anything like that. Probably won't. Probably going to sit on them until Christmas. Sometimes, we talked about this in the last video, you know, seasonal items sell better at certain times of the year, and it may be in your best interest to sit on something and wait till spring or wait till the fall. In this case, these make great presents for kids, and literally the prices can swing greatly. I mean, you could probably make an additional 50% if you wait till December to sell them. Stickers add about 100 horsepower to whatever you put them on, and so that's what we did today, is stickers. Now this little 90 Honda came with this sticker pack. It's a decal kit, it's a wrap, you can call it a couple different things, but it does dress them up and the kids like it. And so, you know, I had a little fun, put them on. The takeaway here is I like to put decals on with a little bit of soap. You'll see in this video I use soap and water in a spray bottle after getting the plastics clean and even scratching them up a little bit with, as you can see, a little bit of Scotch-Brite that I use is really not going to make that big a difference on these. I would not have used a Scotch-Brite. I would have just made sure they were really, really clean had they been in better condition, but they weren't. And so my next move here is I've got some SC1 I'm going to put on here, and that's going to kind of hide some of the smaller scratches and really kind of give the plastic a good shine. And then I also like to use a heat gun. The heat gun puts out, like, you know, just fire basically. You can melt the decals, you can even melt the plastic. And so be careful with a heat gun, but they're really cheap these days. You can pick them up at Harbor Freight, or I'll put a link in the description for one if you want one. But you can use them for a lot of different things. And I think, you know, a heat gun for me is something that I use for decals, for shrink wrap, for removing stickers. You saw that in the beginning of the video where I actually took the old decals off and how easy it just made those decals just fall apart. A heat gun can be used for a lot of things. You may not use it every day, but when you need it, when you want it, it's a great tool to have. So it's we're well on our way, and the reason I bought it is because it started so easily. It shouldn't have. It really shouldn't have. It's a Honda for you. That's all I'm going to say. It's a Honda. So we're going to get the carburetor put back together, and we're going to put it on here. We're going to wrap up a few loose ends with our plastics on this one, and it's really going to be ready to go. But yeah, it's a good little flip, and like I said, if you don't have a lot of experience turning wrenches and figuring things out, buying something that's already running. Trying to step up my game. Got a mic here. We're going to try this. Compare this to the beginning of the video. It was an old mic. I think that mic was on its way out. The last video we shot, it it didn't do real well. So we're going to try this. Hopefully this works out okay. And I've done this for several years. I learned this from a man many years ago. And what he did was he would actually buy something that was broken. He dealt with cars and trucks. And he would buy an older car, an older truck, and he'd fix it up, and he'd get it ready for come November, which is right around the corner, to have it ready for sale. And that was his Christmas club. He would work on that car all summer, early into the fall. And then when December got here, November got here, he would actually sell it, and that would be his Christmas club way of saving for money and making a little bit extra money too. So I've kind of adapted that same policy. I like it. I think it's kind of fun. Kind of makes a game out of saving. So we've got our 290s in the shop, and what we ended up finding out was two things on this little TRX 90, the Honda. I don't know what this guy was thinking, but this is not the right air filter for this machine. The machine would start, idle, and pull, but mid-throttle all the way up, it would just fall on its face. And so I started having to experiment because none of my adjustments were really working. It was quite confusing. It took me a little while to get my head wrapped around it. I tried no airbox lid. I pulled the filter and ran 0 element, and every step I went, it got better and better and better, but it never did get right. So I ended up getting the right filter. It comes with a metal element. You can pick those up aftermarket. They're about $28. I'll put a link in the description below. This machine didn't have the metal element. Around that metal element, there's a foam style filter, and that's what this machine calls for. It's not Honda brand, but it's about 1/3 of what a Honda brand filter would cost. So there's a good foam filter on here, and that did help the problem. Next problem was the carburetor. An actual Honda carburetor for the 90. Now, as you see, I haven't even opened this yet. It just came in the mail. And so you get what you pay for when it comes time to put a carburetor on it. And I have been known to use an inexpensive carburetor from time to time. And sometimes you roll the dice. So I'm not going to throw you or them under the bus for doing it. But getting an original, correct Honda carburetor, and just look at the differences here. They're very similar. The copies are getting better and better and better. First and foremost, you want to make sure it says Kian across the top. There's going to be, looks like a little K or a little star in the middle. And then underneath that, it's going to say Japan. Now, each carburetor is a little different, depending on what model three-wheeler you're dealing with. But for this particular machine, this is the one you're looking for. I have found them where the actual orifice is too big or too small for what that machine's rated for, and it's going to get too much air or not enough air, and it's just going to run terrible. Be sure and look at the fuel pickup is on the same side. When you're scrutinizing the carburetors, on eBay or wherever, make sure. I know this particular carburetor has a clean out or a screen right here underneath where the 2 fuel lines come in. A lot of your aftermarket carburetors just going to be plugged off. It's not going to have that. This carburetor is going to have 2 fuel inlets. It's going to have your primary and you're going to have your reserve. You're going to have your choke. Look how your choke works. You can't tell, how it feels, the positive feel or the click online, but look how it's made. Is it metal? Is it plastic? Does it look the same? These are all little things you want to look at when comparing, when you're buying parts. We bought this machine used. Someone's already put this aftermarket carburetor on it, so we're kind of stuck with it, and I just couldn't get it to run right. I put it through the parts cleaner. You can see how clean it is. We've cleaned it twice. We've cleaned the jets. We blew out all the passages. It's just not going to run right. So I'm going to put all my eggs in one basket, and we're going to start off with a brand new carburetor. A couple things you're also going to see. You're going to find serial numbers stamped into the carburetor. You're going to find model numbers as PB stamped into this carburetor. These are things that the aftermarket carburetors just aren't going to do. They're not going to take the time to put all the markings on them like the original equipment. I really thought this one was going to be probably running too rich, and that's why every time I gave it more and more air, it got better, but it never got great. And so that's kind of what I'm thinking was wrong with that carburetor. You're going to get some of these that work well, and you're going to get some that don't. And so it's a roll of the dice. Is it worth your time? This carburetor here was $130. Now, that's a lot of money, but that's the difference between this machine riding and being able to sell and be confident that it's going to work for a lot of years coming, or taking another $25 gamble and it may or may not work. So I just felt it was the right thing to do at this point in time. And that's what the seller told me. The seller told me it just wouldn't rev up. He said they went out, they went riding, his son was on it, and he just couldn't keep up with anybody else on the trail. The machine was just not running right. And so that's why he sold it. And I was just happened to be at the right place at the right time to pick it up. Between the clogged up air filter, I don't know what this come off of. I don't know if this come off of a lawnmower or if it's old or what, but the machine couldn't breathe through that. But between those two products right there, it sidelined this machine and actually caused somebody to sell it for probably less than what it's worth. You get what you pay for sometimes, guys. I hate to say that. I always like a good deal. We've got our factory hookups. I mean, it's just things that you don't get when you go with an aftermarket carburetor. That's a wrap. This is our 90s here. They're ready to go. So what we ended up doing, remember the Scrambler ran fine. I've ridden it. It pulls me really well. It just needed a few things. The electric starter on it was it sounded like you were running a chainsaw in there. So we changed the starter. You can get an aftermarket starter like $29. There's a link in the description if you need one. It really, when you look at it, it doesn't really look that bad, but the teeth were just worn on it. I'm sure, you know, these machines are not new by no means. But here's the old starter. It was not, this is the company, Niche is who makes it. Just an inexpensive replacement starter. If you look at the teeth here, they're worn pretty good. They're not bad, but I guess bad enough to get loud because they sounded, you know, when you hit the key. I did have to make a few modifications to use the wiring harness that actually came with it. I actually had to change this end out here to make it fit the new starter. The new starter is a bolt. And so what I did is I cut this lead, I put a ringlet or eyelet on it, and then crimped it and then bolted it to the new starter. Good to go. So that was probably the most expensive. I think it was around $27, I think, on Amazon for the starter. We did put some grips on it. It didn't have any when it came in. Other than that, the machine was already running. It just needed some pretty to take it to the next level. Went ahead and serviced it just to make sure everything was good and ready to go for the next guy. The key was hanging out of it, and so we were able to secure that back in the back and get it. It was pushed in, but it didn't lock in. So it's locked in now. The key is ready to go on that one. Everything works. So it already had a battery put in it. The previous owner had it. It's electric start. If you're not sure about these, because it took me a minute to remember, you have to actually pull the brake before you can engage the starter. If you just hit the button, it's not going to work. But the Polaris Scrambler is ready to go. Here's our Honda. We got it all put back together. New carburetor from Honda. That was the big deal on this one. The original carburetor, I was really looking it over closely. And this is the carb that was on it. And the body of the carb didn't seem too terribly big. It was bigger than the factory carb, but what really got me was the cap. The cap on this one, the slide was huge in relation to the factory one. So just a big deal. That was the problem with this machine, is it was just running way too lean. You take that and then you stick this filter on it and it can't breathe through that, and then you just got a recipe for a disaster. And you don't know, when you got multiple problems with a machine, you're not sure, especially after you change one, which I did, and I changed the filter and you saw it on there. And that didn't fix it. Then I had to go a little deeper, and the next step was the carburetor, because there really wasn't anything else that was wrong with this machine, was that carburetor. So where are we at on dollars and cents? So we picked these up. We picked up, let's see, I think it was 1,100 total. So I think it was 5 and 6 respectively. We gave $500 for the Scrambler. We gave $600 for the Honda, which is, you know, the Hondas are generally, they're always going to be more expensive. They just hold their value. Two-stroke, a lot of people are a little hesitant about that compared to the just add gas and go. The decal kit turned out really good on it. I think it looks great. I think the kids are going to like it when they see it. We did find the key. I didn't think we had a key, but the key was actually down underneath the plastics when we pulled the plastics off to clean them. And we found the key, so we put the key back in here. This is cracked through here. I hate that, but you know, it is what it is, the kids say. But it is on there. The nose piece is on there, even though it came separate from with the machine. It's just one of those things when you buy a project, you know, a lot of the previous owners, they just always ask for parts. Ask them, hey, you know, as you're loading it up and the deal's done and it's already paid for, ask them, hey, do you have any more parts? Is there anything you took off of this? I would have loved to have had the factory carburetor. I asked, he didn't have it any longer. And so, you know, we had to buy one, and that sucks. But that's where we're at. I'm probably going to try to clean these grips up a little bit more. You know, light colored grips is just a bad idea. They look good for about a day, and then you end up with something like this. Light colors, always go with a dark colored grip. Black is always going to look black and look a lot better. But I think really both of these are a win. I think we can put them both out for sale. It's to say $1,800 a piece. That's a little high. I know that. And so somebody's going to come in and they're going to offer you $1,500 for them, and you know that's where we want to be, and we'll accept it, and everybody will be happy. They'll feel that they've got a better deal, and they had, and we'll get what we want for them. And honestly, with these purchases at this level, if we ended up taking $1,000 or maybe $1,200 or $1,300, I think we've done good on both of them. So that's it. I'm going to get them marketed out there for marketplace now. If they don't move. If they don't move in a couple of weeks, that's fine. I'll pull them down and I'll let them wait. I'll let them sit, and we'll wait for Christmas to be here. It's September, actually today's September the 16th, which just happens to be my birthday. So happy birthday to me. I hope you enjoyed this video. It's just a little different way of buying and selling and fixing, you know, small engine stuff. And like I said, you may see these in the background for another month or so, but I pretty much guarantee come Christmas time, these are going to be under a tree somewhere, and somebody's going to be really happy with them. And at a price point that everybody's happy with the price of these new machines running $3,000 and $4,000, to be able to pick up something like this that already runs and drives. No, it's not new, but it certainly is dependable, and it's ready to go into service for a fraction of that price. It's a win all the way around. Speaking of buying and selling, a little update on a couple machines that's come through the shop this year. Our little Z50, was able to sell that last week. We got $1,200 for it. We had $420 in that machine. So I had a pretty good margin on that. Probably could have held out for a little bit more, but it just felt like the right opportunity. The right guy came along. He wanted it. He already had one, and he had 2 grandchildren, and he wanted them each to have matching machines. And I thought that was a really cool thing. And with a story like that, you know, what's $100 here or there at this point in time? So the little Z50's gone on to its permanent home, or at least to its next home. The 84 Odyssey, we were able to sell that too. It actually, we sold 4 machines in 3 weeks. It's been very busy. So we were able to sell the Odyssey, and we got $1,700 for that. We had about 700 in it, so we did really well on that margins. That machine, it ran and drove, but to take it to the next level, it was going to need to be tore down, powder coated, and painted, new fenders, those kinds of things. Just more than I wanted to put into a machine, but we got it running and driving. We had some fun with it. And that's what it's about. Remember, we pulled that out of a backyard somewhere. So it was nice to get that machine back up and going and go through some of the hurdles of bringing one of those back. If you enjoy that video, be sure and check out the link. I'll put it in the description if you want to see that one, how that came together. Really fun. That was the first Odyssey I'd ever got an opportunity to work on. Saw one as a kid, and it was a yellow one. So I've learned, and since then, you know, it's funny how when you buy stuff, you learn all about them. But until then, you don't know nothing. The one I saw as a kid was yellow, so that should have been an 81, 82 maybe. This one was red, it was 84. The little Track 2 Murray mini bike, first mini bike I've ever really dealt with. I had a lot of parts left over from doing go-karts. A lot of those parts interchange, motors, change, throttles, you know, cables, just those kinds of things. So that was a fun project, never doing one. I have a scar on my leg to prove that I've built one now. The header came out and burnt me bad, and that's been over a year now. It's just about gone. I'm not going to show it to you, but yeah, it's I got a tattoo, So the Murray 2 got me. That one's gone. And what else was there? And the 200X with the wide axle and the smooth tires. I hated to see that one go, but I just didn't need another project right now, and I felt that it was time. A guy came along, said he really wanted one. I had one, so we made a deal. Everybody was happy on that end. So that was actually the original track record holding machine. I think that machine laid down a 41 seconds on the track, and that kind of started the whole competition between the machines. So the machine, though it needed a lot of work, it needed wheel bearings and tires, you know, that kind of stuff, ran really well, enough to actually put down a track record. So that was kind of a big deal. I thought the wide axle was a little too wide for me personally. I think that in a combination with the aftermarket wheels really pushed that one out there. So those were the four machines in 3 weeks. So it's been busy, and I'll go ahead and tell you the reason that I went ahead and cut all those loose none of them were my, permanent machines, if you know what I mean. And none of them are the ones that are really dear to me. But I needed to raise up some capital. I had some dental work done, and if you know anything about dental work, and people that watch this channel, you do, because we're all about the same age, it's expensive. So if I sound a little different, that's why I've had some dental surgery done. That's why I missed a couple of weeks on videos, and that's why I needed to sell some things. But that goes back to the whole reason I do that. I didn't have to take any money out of my household to pay for the dental surgery. I was able to actually go out to my collection, if you will, and pick out a few pieces, sell those, and pay for that need, because I needed it to be done. And so you can actually use your collection as a bank. If you're dealing in good stuff, and so what I mean by that, if you're dealing in name brands, you're dealing in Hondas and Yamahas and Suzukis and Kawasaki's, there's always going to be a market for that. That's why I always stay away from, say, the gray market machines. I don't get into Tahoes and other words I can't say. If you stick with your major brands, you will always be able to recoup at least most of, if not make a little bit money, depending on how you buy. And so that's why I do this. It's an opportunity. It's a game. It's a game for me to do something I really enjoy, and when I need it, I can cash it out. It's no different than going down to the bank and saying, hey, I need X amount of dollars. But on every one of those machines, except for the little Murray Track 2, we did very well, if not doubled our money. The Murray Track 2, there's just no money in mini bikes. Even if you had a bunch of free parts, there's no money in mini bikes. A mini bike up, running, driving, and stopping is about $400, and you really can't use. And you really can't build one for that. You're going to spend $120 for a motor, $50 for tires, $30 for cables and levers and controls, and before you know it, you've spent $400 just like that. And that machine was a perfect example. I was given that machine. I did some work for a gentleman, so you could say I traded labor for it. And it was fine. I knew that going in. That's what he had to offer. I was trying to help him out. I actually fixed a little pink go-kart, you remember, last year. And he gave me that chassis, that frame of that mini bike as payment. And so, it was fun for me. It was an opportunity to try a mini bike. I've never done one. I already had an engine, and I already had chain and a few other items left over from 10 years ago when I was doing go-karts with my daughter. So, I felt, well, I had the bulk of it. Let's build something and use up those parts. And so that's what we did. We made a video of it, and I got my first tattoo. So it's really a win all the way around. So just wanted to give you a little update. You won't see those machines in the shop again. They're gone, and that's sad, but that makes room for new machines to come in. And in this case, it took care of a need that I needed to take care of. And that's how I use my collection. It's a bank. But thank you for watching. I appreciate it. Just give you a little update on where those machines are. If you wonder, that little Z50 was cool. I hope to find a lot more of those. I really did enjoy that project. I just wish that I wasn't so big. I could ride it a little bit better. Y'all take care. Bye.